What happens when a Great Blue Heron superfan connects with another Great Blue Heron superfan? Don't go anywhere, because this episode will give you a tremendous answer. I've been obsessed with Great Blue Herons for a while, so I'm excited to finally produce an episode about them. It all started at Golden Gate Park, where I was riding my e-bike like I usually do. One day, I noticed a beautiful bird that I had never seen before. It was so beautiful, I immediately pulled over to take pictures and spend some time with it. I eventually found out it was a Great Blue Heron, and I've been enamored with them ever since. I can honestly say it was love at first sight. With long legs, curvy necks, and unique black feathers on their heads, the Great Blue Herons are my favorite birds. If you're lucky enough to see one in person, you'll also notice that they carry themselves with such poise, as they are soft and deliberate when walking and hunting. I was convinced that I was the biggest Great Blue Heron fan in San Francisco, but as I soon discovered, I was wrong.
Hi, this is Nancy DeStefanis. I'm the Heron Lady at Golden Gate Park.
Nancy is the founder of the San Francisco Nature Education, a nonprofit she started after discovering the first Great Blue Heron nest at Golden Gate Park in 1993. Her discovery came at a good time because she was getting ready to retire from her career as a lawyer. She's been keeping tabs on these birds for over 31 years, and to date, she's seen 279 chicks hatch at Golden Gate Park. But let's go back to that first observation in 1993. How did that go down?
I always like to walk around the lake, which used to be called Stowe Lake, but now we renamed it Blue Heron Lake after the birds that nest there. So I always like to walk around the lake for my exercise, and in 1993, in June, I was walking around the lake, and all of a sudden I saw this humongous bird fly into a nest, and two gigantic chicks stood up. So, of course, I was fascinated. And I had to learn more. And then in 1994, I kept watching, and they were back, and I was hooked.
Nancy said this was the first time that Great Blue Herons had ever nested in Golden Gate Park. And she knew that because she had checked the records. At this point, I said, "What? You're telling me there's a record of when different types of birds nest in the city?"
Yes, there were different ornithologists that published books. And I have a book here, published in 1912 by William Maillard, who was an ornithologist. And he records the birds in the city, in the park, and he says, Great Blue Herons, come here. But so far, there are no records of them ever nesting here.
After such a historic discovery, Nancy knew she was onto something, and she wanted to share it with others. So she decided to take things a step further.
After that, I founded San Francisco Nature Education in 2000 to educate the public, to get the kids out from underserved schools, and to start Heron Watch, where we put up the spotting scopes every year, so that folks can come out and observe these fantastic birds through our magnificent spotting scopes. So we've been doing that for 24 years, but I've been monitoring the colony for 31 years when I first spotted them.
The San Francisco Nature Education has done wonders for the local community, particularly the next generation. But why is Nancy so passionate about getting the kids involved?
Well, I think the key to saving nature and stopping this climate change is to get the young people involved. So that's why we brought out actually 25,000 kids from underserved schools since 2002. And we brought out about, maybe 1,000 people every year since then. So that's another 22,000 people. We definitely dedicate ourselves to getting the kids out and their families. So not only the schools, but we now have birding families. But if we're going to change the world, we're going to stop climate change, it all begins with the kids.
But wait, there's more.
I'm very pleased that not only do we get the kids out there, but every year since 2002, we've had interns a total of 275 students from sixth grade up through high school have worked with us, and many of them have gone on to degrees in ornithology, environmental education, conservation, biology. So I'm pretty pleased with the results.
Nancy has helped thousands of people unlock their passion for nature, and that's one of the best parts about her story. But now, let's hear a little bit more about what makes these great blue herons so great. So 31 years ago, Nancy spotted the first great blue heron nest that Golden Gate Park had ever seen. But that got me thinking, what initially brought these birds out here?
We don't know why they came into San Francisco in 1993, but I always believed that there was a disturbance at another colony somewhere, and that's why the birds moved to Golden Gate Park.
So it's not exactly known why they first came to Golden Gate Park, but it is known why they come to Golden Gate Park now, to find a mate and breed chicks. The first part of this process is, of course, finding a mate. And to do so, the males put on quite a show for the females.
Okay, well, first off, don't forget the beaks turn orange as an attraction for the females. Both the male and female have orange beaks. Now, first the male occupies a spot on a tree. He may go back to an existing nest, or he may just start with nothing. Then he starts his incredible stretch displays, where he lifts his head and neck up to the sky, and that is the way they attract a female to come down. So after maybe a week or two or more of this, all of a sudden you see two herons in the nest. And the next thing you see is he's going to get the sticks and she's building the nest.
After the couple gets together and builds their nest, it's time to make some chicks. And if you're wondering how that happens,
he is on top during mating. Okay? So he steps gently onto her back. He braces himself by putting his beak around her neck, and he gently sits down. When their cloacas touch, that's the way they copulate, and that's when you begin to get the eggs. They lay the eggs, 2 to 5 eggs, and the eggs hatch after 30 days, but they hatch what we say asynchronously, which means every other day, so that the oldest chicks have an advantage if there's a food shortage.
After the eggs hatch, for the first 4 weeks, the parents take turns staying at the nest and keeping them warm at night, and going out to forage food for themselves and the chicks. When it's time to feed the chicks, let's just say they have an interesting way of doing so.
When the parent comes in with food, they basically regurgitate it and get out of there because the chicks are pulling down their beaks, the beak of their parent, to stimulate regurgitation, and it's quite violent.
But what exactly are the parents feeding their chicks?
We got fish in the lake here. We've got gophers everywhere. We've got small birds, which they also eat everywhere. So you can see our herons foraging all over the park and even in people's koi ponds throughout the city. Okay? They love to eat koi, and of course, the koi pond owners get kind of upset with us because it's our birds that are, wiping out their koi.
So with a steady diet coming in, courtesy of their parents, the chicks continue to grow. And at 4 weeks old,
the birds are not full size yet, but they're so big and they need so much food that both parents are out catching food for themselves and for the chicks.
Then, at 6 weeks, the chicks become full size, 4 feet, 3 inches. And at about 8 weeks, chicks begin flapping their wings. This is the first step in learning how to fly. It involves branch hopping and several test flights. But even after the chicks learn to fly, they return to the nest to be fed by their parents. What happens after 12 weeks blew my mind. All the chicks go their own way, as the great blue herons do not stay together as a family. Even the parents split up.
Yep, that's the way it works. That's the way it works. Now, let me say this. The parents and the chicks are together until the last chick leaves. So those parents stick around, are constantly feeding them, even after they learn to fly. So as long as those chicks are coming back to the nest, the parents are always there and feeding them.
The family completely splitting up just sounded so heartbreaking to me. It made me think, are they bad parents? But Nancy rejected that premise for a few different reasons.
They are good parents. Both of them are sticking around. Both of them are making sure these chicks are well fed. But as I say, many parents of birds don't stay as a group, okay? And certainly, plenty of them, the male goes off on his own after the chicks hatch, and that's the end of him. So these are devoted parents.
Devoted parents indeed. And as it turns out, sometimes these birds do reunite.
Now, what we do know is if, say, some of those herons returned and they saw the same partner from last year, they probably would start up with them if they had been successful. We know that. We know that we've seen even a few chicks come back.
As our conversation progressed, I started to think about competition. Since the birds come to Golden Gate Park to find a mate and breed chicks, are two males ever competing for the attention of the same female? Could it be that some great blue herons are homewreckers?
We have often, very often, a male that doesn't belong to a nest will come get too close to the nest, and who's ever in the nest will chase that other heron all around the lake. It goes on for minutes, and then they both come back to the same spot. They just did it a week and a half ago. Once an interloper, a stranger, gets close to an occupied nest, they're going to chase them off. And the funny thing about it is that when they're finished chasing each other, they both go back to the same place they were before the fight started. So it's like, what was the point of that whole fight when they go back to the same spots, right? One goes back to the nest and the other heron perches nearby. So it's pretty funny, but I have seen these fights, and boy, they are very loud. They're very guttural, with the squawking, and it's just amazing.
Love drives human beings to do crazy things, and I guess it drives great blue herons to do the same. Nancy has been watching the great blue herons at Golden Gate Park for over 31 years, and I imagine there have been a number of changes since then. So, what are they?
I've seen quite a few changes. Well, while they were at the island by the boathouse, which is where they are right now, we had steady nests from 1993 to 2015 in different trees on that island. However, in 2015, some of the herons moved over to the island near the waterfall, and then they continued there until last year.
But perhaps the biggest change is the name of the lake where they nest. For many years, it was known as Stowe Lake. But as of January 2024, it is now known as Blue Heron Lake, to honor the beautiful birds that Nancy knows so well. I figured that Nancy had to have played a big part in this, and then I found out she did.
Last year, they announced they were going to change the name of the lake because Stowe, S-T-O-W, who it was named after, who was a park commissioner and a member of the California Assembly, was totally anti-Semitic. And he tried to deport Jews in the legislature. I mean, he was terrible, terrible bigot. So it came out that the Rec and Park Commission was going to find a new name. So all the people that had been out to see the herons with us over these last, 22 years and 31 years, they all wrote letters to the Rec and Park Commission, but there was a poll in the San Francisco Standard listing a bunch of possible names. And Blue Heron Lake got 900 votes, the most votes. Then it was 300 for Turtle Lake. And I just encouraged all the people that had been out to see the herons all these years to write in and say, hey, these birds have given so much pleasure to the public for 31 years. Shouldn't we rename it Blue Heron Lake? And guess what? At the hearing before the Record Park Commission, the commission voted to rename it Blue Heron Lake.
I can't think of a better name for this lake than Blue Heron Lake. So shout out to Nancy and everyone involved for making it happen. At this point, I can already tell what you're thinking. Brian, these great blue herons sound amazing. I want to see them myself. Well, you're in luck because the San Francisco Nature Education still has 2 more Saturdays for their 2024 Heron Watch program. One is this Saturday, May 11th, which I'll be attending myself. And the last one is the following Saturday, May 18th. There's a pretty good chance I'll be at that one as well. On both days, the Heron Watch runs from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. and is free for children and adults. All you have to do is head to Blue Heron Boathouse to participate. Additionally, the San Francisco Nature Education has field trips you can attend. These also start at Blue Heron Boathouse at 10 a.m., but you'll need to sign up and prepay online at www.sfnature.org. To make things easier for you, I've added the appropriate links to the episode description. And for more on what you can expect at these unique events, take it away, Nancy.
We open the observation site with the spotting scopes at 10 a.m. and we're open till 1 p.m. It's free. We ask for donations. People just have to walk up, and our volunteers, we have 17 volunteers, will be at different scopes, a couple of them, showing the heron chicks, answering questions, showing the other nests. Now, the folks that come and sign up have to register in advance. It's all on the website. They come at 10 a.m. and adults and children, and we send them out on field trips from 10 until noon, and they get a nature journal with the birds of Golden Gate Park. We loan them binoculars, good binoculars, so they can enjoy and see the birds on the field trip. Now, our leaders are naturalists, and so they're not only going to see a lot of birds, but they're going to learn the history of Blue Heron Lake, which is quite fascinating. So the field trips are about birds and natural history. And the observation site, we have stools for the kids to step up on. And we've got experienced volunteers so they can see and explain what's going on in those nests. If there's a feeding going on, if there's a fight that's happening. So it's pretty exciting. I don't think it's like anything else you could go and see. Because, as I say, the herons are the most charismatic bird in America. And I think the most beautiful. I really do.
Now that you've heard just how great these blue herons are, I think you got to head to Blue Heron Lake and check them out. Great blue herons bring me so much joy. So you can only imagine how much joy this episode brought me. The People Podcast is about following your curiosity, and I'm so thankful that my curiosity led me to Nancy. She is doing amazing work, and it was a real honor to highlight her story on the show. That's a wrap for episode 70, but stay tuned for episode 71. I'll be answering a question that's been on my mind ever since I saw a unique sign in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. How do you win a Watershed of the Year award? I'll answer that and more next Wednesday.